Being alone is not always a bad thing. In fact, a quiet moment to yourself can feel like a deep, calming breath. It is a space where we can untangle our thoughts, find our center, simply rest from the constant noise of the world. This chosen solitude is a source of peace, a way to relieve stress, recharge our internal batteries. We all need this time to ourselves, to hear our own voice without interruption. But this gentle, chosen quietness is a world away from the kind of aloneness that is forced upon a person. When isolation is not a choice, when it is imposed and inescapable, it transforms from a peaceful retreat into a harsh and damaging prison for the mind and body. This forced separation from others, whether it happens slowly over time or is a sudden and complete confinement, has effects that are surprisingly deep and far-reaching. The experience is different for every person, yet a clear pattern emerges. The longer a person is kept away from meaningful social contact and productive activity, the more severe and lasting the symptoms become. This is not just a feeling of loneliness, it is a fundamental disruption of our human needs. We are social creatures by design, and when that essential connection is severed, our very sense of self begins to fray, setting the stage for profound harm. Well, that's the stark contrast. The first signs of trouble and forced isolation often appear in the body. Almost immediately, the system that manages stress goes into high alert. The body begins to produce more stress hormones, like cortisol, preparing for a threat it cannot see or fight. In the short term, this response helps us survive. But when isolation continues indefinitely, this state of alarm never shuts off. The stress becomes chronic, a constant low-level hum of anxiety that wears down the body's resources. This prolonged hormonal spike is the first domino to fall, triggering a cascade of physical problems. They might experience heart palpitations, a frightening sensation of the heart beating too fast or irregularly, as if trying to escape the chest. Headaches, persistent dizziness can become common companions, making it difficult to focus or even stand steadily. A normal sound might seem deafening. A gentle touch might feel like a shock. This is the body's way of screaming for relief. Sleep, which should restore, becomes torment. Day and night blur. Falling or staying asleep feels impossible. Time itself dissolves, hours, days, weeks, into monotony. Appetite suffers. Digestive issues arise. Eating becomes a chore, leading to unhealthy weight loss. These aren't mere annoyances. They are urgent warnings from a body in crisis, a plea for connection, stability, and a balanced, stimulating environment. So those are the early alarms. While the body sends out distress signals, the mind begins a slow and terrifying spiral. We rely on social interactions to keep our thoughts grounded in reality. Talking with others, sharing experiences, even simple disagreements act as a sounding board. This process is called social reality testing. Deprived of it, thoughts become an echo chamber. Identity, once stable, feels threatened. Without external feedback, thoughts circle endlessly. Impulses take control, paving the way for crisis. Depression can set in, heavy and suffocating. Obsessions can loop intrusive thoughts without escape. For some, reality slips. Delusions and hallucinations emerge as the mind, starved of input, creates its own world. Suicidal ideation can become a grave risk. Over time, agitation changes the brain. The limbic system grows hyperactive. Panic, rage, intense anxiety trigger more easily, while the prefrontal cortex, seat of reasoning, self-control, and moral judgment, may shrink. Concentration, memory, and decision-making deteriorate. The balance shifts from logic to overwhelming emotionality, and once ingrained, it's hard to reverse. It's a profound and lasting impact. This kind of forced, prolonged isolation is not just theoretical, it is a reality for thousands. In many countries, it is used as solitary confinement or restrictive housing. In the United States, for example, in 2019, more than 120,000 people lived in these conditions. They spend 22 to 24 hours a day locked in a tiny, often windowless cell, roughly the size of a parking space. condemned as torture by the United Nations and many human rights organizations, and yet its use continues. Introduced by Quaker groups in the late 1700s as a supposed path to penitence, it quickly showed harm. Charles Dickens called it worse than torture. Its use declined, then surged in the 1980s with tough-on-crime laws and skyrocketing prison populations. Authorities turned to solitary to control protests, violence, and general unrest, often for minor, non-violent infractions like talking back. It harms everyone, and especially those with pre-existing mental health disorders, worsening conditions via extreme stress and deprivation. The evidence is clear. It is immensely damaging, fails to rehabilitate, does not reduce violence, and makes readjustment harder, fueling anxiety, paranoia, broken relationships, job loss, and recidivism. Yeah. The bleak reality of forced isolation is not the only story. Norway centers rehabilitation over punishment, imprisons far fewer per capita, and invests more in care. Educational classes, job training, programs that prepare people for successful return to society. Treating people with dignity and providing skills is the best way to prevent future crime. The results speak for themselves, among the world's lowest recidivism rates. Investing in people yields better outcomes for everyone. We get better together, not in isolation. For those in extreme isolation, routines, robust exercise, reading, writing can help, but only do so much. Real change requires fixing harmful policies and structures that allow this torture. We all need connection and a place among others. Chosen solitude is a gift. Forced isolation is a lasting wound. We must end systems of suffering and choose kinder, smarter, more humane policies. Building a world where people grow with others, not wither alone. That's the point.